Can you use your mic, please? I can do that. Yes. Good morning. This is a special open meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods Board of Directors. We appear to have a quorum present and online. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today. Moved. Seconded. Any objection? The agenda is approved. All right. The purpose of this meeting is to review the third iteration of the proposed business plan for 2025. I know staff has been working hard on it. I'm pleased to see that we knocked another dollar or so off of the plan. And so I look forward to the presentation today. That's all the comments I have. So let's move on to the open forum. Is there anybody that is registered to speak for the open forum?
Yes, we have a comment from Sue Stevens.
Morning, Sue.
Good morning. Try this.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, my first item, it has to do with insurance. And what I'd like to do is give you each a copy of something from 2020. And it itemizes the various types of insurance, and it notes that $100,000 premium is paid for equestrian liability over and above the umbrella pricing. Can I pass it around?
Sure.
I brought too many because I thought there'd be more here. And the second page that you're going to see is the page 195 in the budget, in the, what we call the green book, the budget plan, the great big thing. And it shows the cost of the equestrian amenity. And it does not include this additional insurance, and I think that it should. If it still is being paid, it's possible that it was just something that happened in 2020, because you'll see that that's a chart from 2020's budget. I don't know if it's still in effect. I don't know how much it is, but I know for sure that even in 2020, it was not shown as a cost for equestrian. Just bring it to your attention.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Good morning. We went to 5 real quick. Okay. I have a question about the trust facility fund exceptions. I don't know if Jose remembers me asking that question about the trust facility fund, the $7,500, the exceptions. And you sent me something that was very legal, and I requested for an interpretation of it, and I have not. Does anybody? I haven't gotten that. So that question, and how much is outside services cost per hour? Because they don't bring in their own equipment, and they use our material and supplies. So approximately how much per hour?
All right.
Do we have that?
Do you have something?
Ellen, on the Trust Facilities Fund,
Yeah.
it is right now being looked at by our attorney. There is confusing language, I agree. It's all legalese. Basically, the exceptions, the big ones were the amount paid for a unit, so that the less expensive ones at the towers were not paying the same as the $1 million homes in Third. There are 5 exceptions, but we're trying to, we are getting a legal review, and we're going to try to, we are rewriting it, right, Bill?
We are, yes, we're looking at making the language more clear.
So that we can clear that up.
Okay.
And on the second one, I'm sorry, I'm losing it now. What was your second point?
Second one was the outside services.
Oh, the outside services, they vary, so you can't get a specific. It's not the same for all.
But it's paid by hour, correct?
Some of them are paid by hour and some of them are not. So for example, we outsource lifeguards, right? And we outsource lifeguards, and that is a per hour cost, as well as we do grounds maintenance. We outsource grounds maintenance. We use outside services to do geology work and consulting and those kinds of things. So there's a whole lot of different things, everything from the relatively introductory lifeguards to something much more skilled. So there's quite a bit of a span.
Maybe it would be nice to have some type of breakdown. Do you think, I don't know if you think that's possible, okay? I have one other question, if you don't mind, okay? The extension of the trust, and that was recorded, I understand that it needed a court order from the probate court. Was that ever obtained, or? No?
I'm not aware
I know.
of that
Yeah.
which you speak, so I can't answer that question.
All right. Somebody will get back to me, I hope. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, before we go further, I forgot to mention that this is an open meeting. We have a number of people online, but we're also being televised today. So just be aware of that. All right, do we have any other open speakers?
No.
All right. I guess response-wise, any response from the board?
I can answer the question about equestrian. We budget $55,000 for insurance for equestrian for 2025.
Okay.
So it's gone down from 100,000 this year?
55.
Can you show it on page 195 as an expense?
It's included as part of the insurance over in the insurance work center.
Why, a lot of things are elsewhere that are shown. We don't.
Yeah, we'll address it.
All right. That being done, let's move on to the review of the 2025 Business Plan Version 3.
Perfect. Thank you for the opportunity to review version 3 of the 2025 business plan. It's my pleasure to come and talk to you a little bit about it today. We'll get it up here on our screen. And just kind of to walk everyone at home as far as where we've been and where we're going. If I can have the next slide here. Just wanted to walk you through our calendar.
Can I ask a question?
And
At what time can we ask questions about the budget that you're going to present?
perfect. And
We'll have periods of time for question as we finish discrete sections if we follow our pattern from prior meetings. Is that?
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So, yeah, we'll get to the business plan and we'll be able to go section by section. But I just wanted to walk everyone through, especially those that may be watching at home, haven't had an opportunity to see what we've been up to. Just wanted to let you know that for 2025, this is something, budgeting is something that we take seriously because we know, of course, that your homeowner's assessments are based on the budget. So it's something that we got started back in March. You can see here on your screen, back in March, we had department workshops where we had all the department heads come forward and present, and I give you an idea of what's going on in each of their individual departments. We took that as a basis for what to base our 2025 budgets on. We asked you if there were any service level changes that needed to change. So we took all that information that you gave us and then had a couple of meetings in May where we presented our capital. So those items that have a longer term. So we took a capital and went item by item for our capital plan for 2025, as well as, again, the operating departments. We had each of them come in and show you budgets for what was going to happen in 2025. We've also taken all of your input from that meeting and revised it into version 2, which we presented in July. So in July, we came forward and we continued to work on that budget. As was mentioned a little bit earlier, it's come down about another $1 per man per month since those meetings. So here we are with version 3 of the budget. And this is going to be an effort to go line item by line item, answer any questions that you might have to get you ready for a proposed final version, which the board will take a look at their September meeting and vote on it at that point. But as we've been going forward, we've seen that there's been a lot of things that have been affecting the budgets, both internally and, of course, externally. And a couple of those items we haven't had much control over. So, for example, inflation, right? Inflation has been a hot topic. It's something that's been affecting all of us. We see it everywhere from our grocery stores to absolutely our homeowners association. So this is something that has been running rampant, and we've been doing what we can to deal with the inflationary forces. Also, utilities. Utility rates in particular have increased quite a bit for 2025, and we'll take a look at some numbers in just a second, but letting you know that that has had an adverse effect, particularly in the areas of electricity and water as we go forward. Insurance, you may have noticed in your homeowners or your car insurance that particular industry has been very difficult. Insurance rates have continued to increase. I want to let you know that our hazard and liability insurance is up 14% despite competitive bidding. This is something that's played an issue not only in your hazard and liability, but also the next line there, the workers' compensation insurance. And this is not that you're having any additional claims, but it's just the nature of those claims themselves have been going up in price quite a bit. And then, of course, your union and your non-union wage adjustments. This is something that's ongoing. As inflation happens, as prices go up, so do the wages for your employees. So taking a look at that. So these are some of the factors that have been affecting the budget. And I want to just give you a bottom line figure here. In 2024, the GRF basic assessment was $228.22. Version 3 of the 2025 budget is $238.19. In other words, an increase of $9.97 per man per month, or 4.4%. And we'll be going through each and every one of the line items, but I want to bring the 4 line items that we just talked about: utilities, insurance, outsourcing of lifeguards, and workers' comp insurance. All these items here, these 4 items make up for 84% of the total increase here. Again, utilities have been rather rough. We'll go through them one by one. Insurance, again, general liability and excess liability quotes have come back quite substantial. Outsourced lifeguards, this one in particular, your lifeguards, are going to be competing against some of the local restaurants. I know that there's been a new legislature change as far as minimum wage at restaurants, and we've been competing with those folks, and so that's what's really made it difficult for that, as well as your workers' comp insurance. It's almost $1 per man per month there. So this is something that I just wanted to start with and let you know that this is the majority of your increases are going to be based off of these 4 things. But again, this is something that we've been talking about and looking into for quite a while. And we have our CEO here, Siobhan Foster, to let us know a little bit more about the budget development process.
Thank you, Jose. Good morning, members of the board and our audience. Our budget development process kicks off in February, where we begin looking at the actual and budgeted staffing levels for the past 5 years. So we looked at staffing from 2019 to 2024, and executive management then determines vacant positions that can be eliminated and reasonable 2025 staffing levels. And these staffing levels, we try to budget what we need, but no more than what we need, and we base these on efficiencies and process adjustments that we've made throughout the year. And the inherent turnover in the current job market, as everyone knows, this is a difficult job market. And so we know we have inherent turnover, and we want to account for that. And then so from April on, department directors input their line item budgets. In May, executive management reviews those budgets and recommended changes. In May, we then conducted departmental budget reviews where we sat down with department heads and went line item by line item. And that brought us to version 1 of the budget in June as a starting point. From June's version 1 to version 2, we were able to reduce proposed operating costs by about $900,000. And then between version 2 and 3, again, we were able to reduce the proposed operating budget by about $136,000. So that is what Jose will be presenting to you today in detail. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Siobhan mentioned a couple of things here. One of the things that we did is from version 2 to version 3, for those of you that did get an opportunity to see the version 2 budget, I just want to highlight some of the changes that we had from version 2 to version 3. And here they are on your screen. First and foremost, we have a golf maintenance outsourcing contract. So we're talking about outsourcing the maintenance of your golf facilities. This is a contract that's still ongoing, but in recent negotiations, they've been able to come down as far as the budget is concerned, about $82,000 most recently. So that was good to see and to incorporate. And as we were taking a closer look at the budgets, you see numbers 2 and 3 there. We do anticipate taking a closer look at RV storage fees and traffic violations, and there are some fee changes that are coming up. We do anticipate that's going to generate a little bit more revenue for GRF than it did in 2024, so you see the addition of that revenue there. We also eliminated some contingencies for unplanned carpentry and paint repairs, so you saw a little bit of a benefit there. We were also taking a look and saw that occupant fees are based on the GRF portion of your assessment, so as that's going to be going up a little bit, you do anticipate a little bit more revenue, so just accounting for everything there as well. We did miss a couple of expenses that we added for version 3, and those are on your screen there as number 6 and number 7, and that's going to be primarily the addition of repair and maintenance for purchased fitness equipment. We had changed that over to purchasing as opposed to leasing, and that's going to be coming with a little bit of maintenance, as well as some other budgetary changes that we needed to make. We had a position in there as a part-time position that was supposed to be a full-time position, and that $4,000 represents the additional cost associated with that. But again, all in all, from version 2 to version 3, you saw a reduction of $136,000 or 91 cents per man per month. So on the next slide here, on slide 9, you'll see a staffing trend. We also want to take the opportunity to let you know where we're going from a staffing perspective. You see that over the last couple of years, we've really been reducing the number of staff, and that's on account of we're outsourcing. So we're doing a lot more outsourcing as far as golf is concerned, so that's why you see the dramatic change there. So you are going to see some savings in dollars as well, but altogether, majority of that was offset by the fact that we are outsourcing and including that in outside services. And my last preliminary slide here is going to be on the GRF assessment. Again, version 3 of the 2025 proposed budget is an increase of 4.4%, $9.97 for a total assessment of $238.19. We provide this chart in an effort to let you know of where we've been over the last 10 years or so, just to give you an idea of where we are. And at this point, I want to go ahead and get started on the actual business plan itself. Here's a summary of what the business plan shows, and we'll be going over these line item by line item, focusing on each and every one of them. But I just want to let you know that all in all, you have, of course, revenue. We do plan in 2025 for additional revenue equaling $4.08. So that's what you see there on the top line. We also have additional expense of about $14.05. We don't foresee any changes in the surplus or deficit recovery. So altogether, as far as net operating, that's just the total there, a total increase of $9.97. We also foresee no changes in reserve or contingency fund contributions. And what we'll do next is we'll go through each of these line items individually. We'll show you what makes them up, and then we'll pause at the end of each one of these for any questions that you may have. So I want to get started with non-assessment revenue. So we'll focus on this particular line here. For 2025, we do anticipate an additional $624,000 of revenue. That equals $4.08 per man per month. I have a little pie chart here just to remind us of where revenue comes from a quick glimpse. you'll see that the majority of it is going to be broadband as well as golf. We do have a miscellaneous section here, and that has all kinds of things, including equestrian fees, class fees, additional occupant fees, RV storage. So quite a bit of miscellaneous in there, but about 3/4 of it is made up of broadband and golf revenue. And for each of these, we're going to show you all the individual categories. For these categories, you'll see on your screen, these numbers are in thousands, and we do give you 3 years worth of actuals. So we give you actuals for 21, 22, and 23. We also show you last year's plan and the proposed plan. The column on the furthest right is going to be what the impact is on your assessment. So for that top line, for example, we do anticipate receiving more revenue, $455,000 more revenue, and since we have more revenue, then that means that your assessment will be decreased. So that's our format here for the next several slides. But talking a little bit, and my explanation will be the changes between 2024 and 2025, since the majority of the questions that I get are going to be, what's going to happen to my assessments, or why is that going to change my assessments? So that's what we'll be focusing on today. So I'd like to start here with golf greens fees. You can see that this area decreased the assessment by $455,000 to reflect the ongoing trend of higher golf course usage, also coupled with anticipated rate changes. So with golf greens fees are something that we're taking a look at currently. I know it's going to be discussed at your next CAC meeting. Finance has recently taken a look at that. We do anticipate rate changes, and you'll see for both these top 2 line items that we do budget a little bit more revenue based on those rate changes. $455,000 for golf greens fees and $78,000 for the golf operations, which include driving range, golf cart use, and those types of things. You'll see here that merchandise sales goes unchanged at $643,000, and clubhouse rentals and event fees, we do anticipate more revenue of $247,000 due to the trend of more club-related events held over at the Performing Arts Center. So what ends up happening there is we collect both sides of this. We collect all the revenue associated with that. There's also expenses associated with that. You'll see an increase in expenses here when we get to the expense category. But all in all, GRF is seeing more event rentals over at the Performing Arts Center. So that's why the change in revenue there. For rentals here, and this is going to be rental associated with leasing storage of equipment and parts to outside services. So we rent our parking spots, for example, and those kinds of things over across the street. You'll see a little bit more revenue from there by about $3,000. In broadband services, this is going to be the area that you see less revenue in. You see less revenue by $518,000 due to less advertising expected during a non-election year. So for your election years, you'll see a spike in revenue, and those are going to be your even years. And then on the odd years, you see less revenue as we don't have quite as much revenue coming in. Under miscellaneous revenue, miscellaneous revenue decreased the assessment by $300,000 due to higher clubhouse labor fees at the Performing Arts Center. So as we have to have techs come in and make sure that the stage and everything is set at the Performing Arts Center, we treat that as a pass-through. We end up charging that to whoever is renting it. So you see more revenue come in. You also see a little bit more expense again on the expense portion, but we'll talk about those in just a minute. But all in all, you see more revenue coming through at $624,000 and decreasing the assessment by $4.08. And I'll pause at this point and take any questions that you might have about revenue.
Any board member questions? Martin?
Hi, Jose. Thank you for that report. We're trending in the right direction, I think. On the rental fees for the clubhouses, are we collecting what we should be collecting? I know we was talk about like the operation of the green, the golf was like 65-35 rule. Does that also apply to the rentals of the rooms for the events? I mean, are our fees in line like they should be for that?
That's a loaded question. There also is a percentage as well that was approved. I know that clubhouse fees were just recently taken a look at this year. So the CAC met and it was presented to the board as far as all that is concerned. We do take in less than what we spend, just like we do for any of the other facilities.
I just wonder if we're truly collecting everything that is deserved for, that room being there and what we have to put into it to make that event functional, and making sure that whoever is utilizing it is just paying, the sheriff costs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you. So, Jose, the broadband services increase cost is a direct result of a reduction of advertising fees, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. On the outsourced lifeguards, on page 4, that $187,000 increase is for the continuation of the current lifeguard services that we have.
That's correct. They had quite a substantial increase,
Okay.
A $2 per hour increase, which translated into quite a bit of dollars. Additionally, they are billing us more for the lunches that they're having to cover and those kinds of things.
So my question is, I guess, and you may not be able to answer it, it may be up to a board for me to bring it up in the next board meeting, but there was some some discussion about eliminating the lifeguards and saving approximately $850,000 a year on that cost. So has that been nixed?
That is something that we presented to the board. We gave them an option whereby we were going to turn one of the pools and not have a lifeguard at it. There was a lot of discussion on it, and ultimately that is not something that the board decided to move forward with at the time.
So the board's officially made a decision, to your knowledge?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Egon?
Yeah, thank you. On table 7, the top item there is golf maintenance outsourcing contract adjustments. We just went through this last week, I guess, and then the statement at that point was that we're actually paying more for the total golf course maintenance. So how come this number has a reduction?
No, I want to provide some clarification. We will be paying less.
Is that going to be discussed again at the CAC meeting on Thursday?
It's going to be discussed again. I'm not sure if it's going to be at that meeting. We're still in negotiations with the
But it's on
contractor.
I think it's on the agenda.
My apologies. You may be confusing two different things. One is going to be the price of golf itself, the cost. That's going to be discussed at CAC. What we're talking about here is outsourcing the maintenance of the greens themselves. And this is a contract that's going to go on with a third party.
Well, okay, let it go with that.
Is that it for the board members?
We had a question from Sue online.
Okay. Sue?
Hi. Well, good morning. Thank you for this excellent presentation. It's very helpful. I just had a couple of questions. And on the lifeguards, I just wondered if we had considered hiring retirees, our residents who might have lifeguard certificates to cover this. And it's probably been considered, I just don't know about that. And then my second question, and I don't know if it's a revenue or an expense, and the timing is off just a bit, or I would have brought it up at the CAC, which is happening later this week. But I know we had some real concern from some clubs who were saying that it was unfair that the Chicago Club and the Champagne Pops were able to advertise and have their posters up, and yet we were not able to do so. They were not able to do so. So I had mentioned in prior meetings, and I don't know if there's any interest in this, but in order to have parity, if we could get an electronic board that would announce the dates, and then there would be more people able, or more clubs able to advertise, and it would be, more fair. And I just wondered if this is something that can be considered. Thank you.
I don't have any answers for you as far as advertising is concerned, but I will. Allison, that's perfect.
Okay.
Good morning. So regarding the lifeguards, we do have a few resident lifeguards. We advertise for lifeguard services on our website, so if people are interested, they can go to our websites with all of our other job listings and apply. As far as advertising, we are looking to review our policy for recreation, which may help with some of those concerns. As far as the CAC or the board making a decision on spending money on technology to support that, that would be up to that discussion at those meetings.
Thank you. Okay, somebody from the audience?
We had a question from a member in the audience, Catherine Brabata.
Good morning. Last week there was a meeting and it was quite full, so I was outside with several other owners, and they were very concerned about Clubhouse number 4, stating that we don't charge for Clubhouse number 4. And another concern that he had, and he was very upset about it, is that there is one particular gentleman, I did not get his name, but he actually has a business out of his home, and he uses Clubhouse 4. I don't know if it's woodworking or what it is, and he does all of his work at Clubhouse 4, then sells it through his business. And the gentleman that we were outside here said that people don't pay to use Clubhouse number 4. Now, I'm very new, not to Laguna Woods Village, but on the board and coming to these meetings. So is that correct? Was he correct in what he was telling me?
There is not a budget for Clubhouse 4. Allison?
Yes, currently Clubhouse 4 is unique in that we don't have established fees for room rental use. We do have some after hours charging for staff, but there are no room rental fees. So that is something that is on the radar, but it's something that we have not gotten to yet.
And when do you anticipate getting to it? Because they were very upset.
I understand. We have a laundry list of things that we need to get to, so it is on the radar. I can't guarantee a time, but it is something we hope to look at by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about broadband services. Is the contract up this year?
Which contract, I'm sorry?
Broadband.
There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
Which specific?
Oh, I thought the contract for West Coast Internet or broadband, no?
The contract is not up yet, but Robert is here. He can tell us a little bit more.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, the contract for West Coast Internet expires at the end of 2026, so December 31st of 26.
Thank you. And what about miscellaneous? You only had said something about the labor pass-through for like your technicians. What other miscellaneous do we have?
We're still talking about revenue. So there's a lot of things in there, including horse boarding, class fees, additional occupant fees, RV storage. Those are going to be the main ones. You have some lesser things like traffic violations and EV charging. but there's quite a bit in there.
Are they broken down on the PowerPoint?
They're not broken down on the PowerPoint, but I will direct your eye, if I could, maybe if I can have Karina bring it up. Everything that we're talking about right now is, of course, in summary, but in your agenda item, page number 6 of your agenda item will actually give us an individual breakdown of each of the different accounts that we have in here. And just kind of to bring everyone up to speed here, we'll put it up on the screen. And down towards the bottom here, you can see this is the top portion is going to be the miscellaneous. So down on the bottom, it says miscellaneous, and you'll see all the different accounts. It actually stretches on into page 7 as well. So all that information has been put out there for you. It is available to you. I'm giving you the general highlights of what changed from one year to the next.
We still have a miscellaneous here. 81,000 is that, because that seems to be one of the bigger ones. It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom of the first grouping.
Yes.
Just curious of what that is. Anything?
We can find out for you. We'll let you know.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, Steve.
I had made a note for myself. We have on page 7 of 31, on the attachment 3, there's a schedule for estate sale fees, and there's an amount of $2,480. Do you have any idea of how many estate sales that covers, or what that fee is individually per sale?
I don't. But I'll get you that information, the $2,480.
Okay. I have a concern on that specifically because there are businesses who are coming into the village who are conducting those estate sales, and they run for 2 or 3 days. And in one that I recently attended last week, there was a security officer in a security vehicle stationed in the cul-de-sac for the entire 6 hours of the day, and that ran for 3 days. And I'm concerned that we're allowing outside businesses to come in here with a profit motive that's costing us money, and that's something that we should seriously look at for obvious reasons to me. But thank you.
All right.
Anything further? Let's move on.
In that case, let's move on to the expense category. So all in all, as far as expenses are concerned, you see here we have an increase of $14.05. This represents an increase of 4.8%. And again, we'll be going through each of the individual items therein. But on this next chart here, you'll see a pie chart, just kind of to give us a big picture. We are talking about $46.5 million. Over half of it is compensation. You see cable programming fees are 11% and on down the line here. We also have an outside services category, again, that we'll talk about individually, but just wanted to give you some perspective, $46.5 million in all. And let's begin with that compensation line. So you'll see here on the compensation line, you'll actually see a decrease of $104,000, and you'll scratch your head and wonder what's going on with that. I thought compensation pretty much increases every year. What's ending up happening here is we've outsourced the golf maintenance. Without that outsourcing of the golf maintenance, this area would be an increase of $819,000 or 4%. So altogether, we've kept everything at about a 4% increase. Included in this 4% increase is going to be the removal of a turnover factor throughout the Recreation Services Department. And that's going to be really important to you because the clubhouses haven't, or at least aren't budgeted to be staffed up as much as they should be. So we really took a hard look at those. Allison and I and Siobhan sat down together and found out and discussed what the operating hours are. We wanted to make sure that we were going to have coverage for each of those operating hours to make sure that you have access to your amenities. So I'm happy to report that the 2025 plan does have funding for all of that. And even with all of that included in there, you again, absent the outsourcing of golf maintenance, this area increased about 4%. So that's pretty good. Expenses related to compensation, also you'll see a decrease here of $183,000, again, because of the outsourcing of golf maintenance. If that golf maintenance hadn't been in here, this area would have increased 6% or $364,000. And the increase here is going to be primarily led by that workers' compensation insurance. That workers' comp insurance is, again, that's one of the places that hit us the hardest. We talked about how that was, in and of itself, was about $1 per man per month increase. So that's what's going on as far as compensation is concerned. Materials and supplies here, you see this area decreased by $77,000, primarily due to the movement of miscellaneous recreation equipment from the operating budget to the capital plan. So we took a look and saw, hey, you have a lot of smaller items, kilns, different items that you use inside the clubhouses that we were paying for out of operating. And then at the end of the day, we were reclassifying as capital expenses. They are now included in your capital plan, so we removed them from your operating, and that's why you see a decrease here of about $77,000. That cost of goods sold line, we're going to have similar sales, or we project similar sales to last year, just a small increase here of about $5,000 for cost of goods sold. This community events line, this is the area that increased $151,000 due to more events held at the clubhouse, particularly at the Performing Arts Center. So you saw additional revenue on the revenue side. Here's where you see additional expense. All in all, you still see a net favorable here to GRF. You're getting more usage out of those. You're getting more rentals out of those. So all in all, this is a good thing. On this slide here, you see your utilities. And again, utilities were going to be one of those items that really have affected us for 2025. You can see that electricity on its own increased $264,000, and that's based on the current consumption at the current year rates. We did hear from SCE, and they did anticipate that the rates were going to remain constant for 2025, so that was good to hear. But nevertheless, you see the budget there hasn't even caught up to the 2023 actual, so that's why the big increase there of $264,000. Similar for water and sewer. Water in particular has increased quite a bit. One of the big items dealing with water for GRF is going to be the reclaim. No, it's the tertiary water. The water that you use on your golf course, they have added an additional fixed cost to that. That unfortunately GRF pays now on a monthly basis. So you see a fairly substantial increase here of about $116,000. Again, we're going based off of the published rates that just went into effect of July of this year. So a big increase there. Trash, this is something that as you know, Laguna Woods has a franchise agreement with a trash provider, and as they were coming on to be our trash provider, they had a 5-year contract where it was going to be showing some pretty substantial increases. Happy to report that 25 is the last of those substantial increases. That's the good news. The bad news is it is 16%. We did get some assurance from them that there will be more modest increases going forward, but this is something that's going forward. Now, I'm happy to report, though, as we take a look at that trash, we took a look closer to what we actually use, and we've done a lot of right sizing, and so we've used a lot less bins. So we have historically been able to come in a little bit lower than that. So I know that Robert and his crew are doing a good job in trying to figure out to of course, only pay for those items that we need. So it's not just because it's there, it's been done in the past. It's not something that we automatically do. Your staff is always looking to see where we can save money. Natural gas here increases by $55,000. Again, it's going to be due to recent usage at the pricing. Natural gas is charged not only for the gas itself, but for the delivery fees, which varies wildly, but historically it's been going up just like everything else has. So that's why the 12% increase that you see there. Telephone has increased by $58,000. Again, this is one of those items here that we're using more and more of. We're switching to use a lot more internet-based technology, but you're starting to see more and more usage on that. So there's an increase rate of $361,000 here. Fuel and oil, this is one that we always do our best to approximate. I will say that we're using a combined wholesale price of about $4.20 based off about 150,000 gallons is what we use in all. So again, we try to pay special attention to how much fuel it is that we're using, and we try to get your best rates available, but we do plan an increase of about $32,000 based on the most recent prices provided by the U.S. Energy Information Association. That's been made available to us. So that's what we have as far as utilities and fuel. Moving on this next page here, we see some legal. And this is going to be specific. You see a decrease here of $16,000 due to a downward trend in employee-related legal events. So I'm happy to see that there's less of those, and so that's just an average there that we use. For professional fees, you see an increase of $111,000, and this is primarily due to your reserve study. So as you know, we have a contracted reserve study where a reserve specialist comes on site once every 3 years to take a look at your infrastructure and to take a look at those items for which you have responsibility for over the next 30 years. 2025 is that third year. That is when they will be doing their on-site inspection. So that's why you see a spike in the price. So the other 2 years, it's a more nominal fee that they just do charge us to do a desktop version, as they call it. Equipment rental here, you see a decrease of $85,000, and that's based on the anticipated transition of cardio equipment at the fitness center. So for cardio equipment in 2024, we were leasing it. In 2025, that has been put into our capital plan, so we will no longer lease it. That's why you see the operational savings of $85,000. That's the good news. The bad news is you saw quite a chunk of it in your capital plan, but at that point, at least you'll own it. Outside services here, this is going to be the biggie, $1,481,000 increase, and this is going to be, again, primarily due to the outsourcing of golf maintenance. If it were not for that outsourcing of golf maintenance, this area would be an increase of $279,000, and the majority of that is because of the aquatics contract. Again, that aquatics contract has increased both in the number of hours and in the price per hour. And this is something we go out to bid and make sure that you get the right price here, but this is something that's fairly substantial. The last item on this particular page is repairs and maintenance, which has increased $57,000 due to hardware and software licensing renewals. We see those increasing in price. We also have, as we're bringing on that cardiovascular equipment at the clubhouses, there's also additional repair and maintenance associated with it, as you will now be owning it. On this next page here, you have this other operating. This area increased particularly in safety. Safety has now been outsourced, so you'll see more of the safety measurements going on in here. We also removed a couple of contingencies for training and education, which hadn't historically been used as much. We still have training and education in there, but we wanted to provide as lean a budget as we could and still maintaining realistic expectations here. You see there's minimal change for income, property, and sales tax, a decrease of $3,000. Insurance, as we've talked about, this area has increased $415,000 due to the increase in hazard and liability insurance. This is a renewal that takes place October 1st. We do anticipate quite a big increase there. We're anticipating a 14% increase. We will continue to negotiate really up until the last day that's due, but that renewal will take place October 1st. And cable programming, you see a slight decrease here, but we know that programming charges have continued to increase. I wanted to direct your attention to the 2023 actual here. You see that for the 2025 plan, it's quite a big increase. I know that there's been a couple of contracts in particular that have come to you as a board, and you've been able to review each of the contracts. And when I say programming, I'm talking about the different networks that you get the programming for. So as those contracts come due, they are brought to you for renewal. But based on everything that that you currently have, no changes in programming, we do see a need for $5,125,000 there for 2025, a slight decrease from the 2024 plan. In the last slide here for expenses has uncollectible accounts. For an entity your size, you're doing quite well there. So we just took an average there. $11,000 is the amount that we put in for 2025. Gain and loss. This is as items become obsolete and old, we take them and sell them at auction. So this is the paper gain, if you will, on those items, usually about $30,000 a year. And the last item here is your cost allocations, and this is the result of interdepartmental allocations. So this decreases all of the expenses associated with, for example, vehicle maintenance and IT support and HR, and it passes it over to the mutual. So that's why the decreased of $121,000. As you have more expenses, you allocate more expenses. So that's why the decrease there. So again, this was a $46,515,000 expense category, an increase of about 4.6%. And happy to take any questions that you might have on expenses.
Martin?
Yeah, thanks, Jose. I'm going to get back to that, the cost on community events. It appears like you've applied the same fraction of, like, you see an increase in the revenue on community events, and that you've applied an applicable percentage increase in its cost. I know that, like in the freight railroad industry, the bean counters they look at one fraction, and that's cost over income, expenses over income, and their drive is to lower that fraction. Like it's around 60%. They want to get it to 50%. You know, and I'm just wondering, if you took that and you look at the cost of having community events and what we take in for community events, what can we do to lower costs to improve that ratio that could apply there? Or do we just automatically apply? Okay, if we get an increase in 30% of revenue, that means our costs are going to go up by 30%. And it's a paradigm shift of thinking that we need to improve those ratios. Thank you.
I mean, is that correct? Do you apply the same ratio to expenses as you do the projected increase in?
So as a reminder, what the board most recently did is we took a look at the total cost, the expense, and that went up by a certain percentage since the last time we changed room fees, and we applied that same percentage towards the revenue. So I'm going by memory here, but I believe that from 2019 to 2024, in that 5-year period, expenses had increased 25%. Therefore, we increased the rates, the room rates by 25% as well.
Thank you. Steve?
Before the meeting today, in reviewing the attachments, under other operating expenses, the one that really jumped out at me was safety. I had not been familiar with that previously. But the increase this year is going from $100,000 annually to $244,000 annually. Can you describe for me what that expense is?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And just to have everyone else follow along at home, this is page 8 of 31 on your agenda.
Other operating expense, safety.
Within the other operating expense category, about halfway through that, there's a line item called safety. account 5393,000. And Steve's question is, hey, that was $100,000 last year, and that's going up to 244. What gives? So the answer here is we actually outsource safety. We used to have a safety officer on board, in-house. We decreased that staffing, and now we outsource the entirety of safety. They come on site. They make sure that that our safety boxes are filled. They're making sure that we're compliant with all regulations, and we've outsourced it, and that's why it's showing up now under this line, as opposed to having an in-house staff person doing it.
So prior to 2025, we were doing it in-house
Yes.
for $100,000, and now we're outsourcing it for $250,000.
There's more in there than just that, but
Oh,
yeah, it went from 100,000 to 244. Yes.
Because we're outsourcing.
Yes, but there's an offset, right? So you did save on that staff position. You eliminated one staff position.
Okay.
The net impact is about zero. That was why we made this decision. There's some revenue that comes in that we apply to this as well.
My question predominantly was a definition of safety, and I think you've discussed it, making sure that boxes are adequately set for eye wash and burn care and things.
It's our employee safety program
Right,
and
we're
our
meeting
contractor
OSHA
safety
and the
program.
rest of that stuff. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think you mentioned, but I think we need to emphasize, safety training goes under there as well. And that's a very big thing with a staff this large.
Thank you.
Any other board members? We have a member of the audience?
We also have a board
No,
member.
not a board member. Martin.
I just had a comment. Yeah, safety training and quality assurance, they go to the bottom line as far as, if you want to control costs and try to get the most for your dollar. Safety and quality assurance are critical. Thank you.
Yes.
We are experiencing a higher utility expense, and I noticed that the electricity is almost a $250,000 higher than what it was last year. Why don't we use some of our reserve money to put some solar panels in, which I've been talking about for a long time, which could reduce our electricity bill? Have we ever considered that?
It's not his decision.
Pardon?
Our decision.
I know, it's not their decision, but I'm talking to the board, that why don't we,
A number of times, and sorry to say.
sorry?
Should have put solar on Clubhouse One when we renovated.
Say it again, please. Please repeat what you said.
This is actually off topic. What she said is that we did not put solar on Clubhouse One when it was renovated, and we should have, but we didn't. Steve?
Yeah.
To your point, Kush, having had a long-standing affiliation with Energy in the Village here since I came in 2012, it's a multi-part system. Yes, we do not have any solar PV, as the mutuals have.
Slightly higher, louder.
We do not have any solar PV, as the mutuals have made the investment to. We have done multiple studies on energy conservation for GRF. Personally, I believe that we are very inadequate in our energy management systems. Over the course of many years, we've spent well over $1 million on energy management systems. I don't know how they're being monitored or reprogrammed. And I think that's an area that needs really a drill down to. There's something in the capital budget, I believe, for next year for $390,000 for EMS improvements in 3 clubhouses. And I haven't seen the EMS systems where we already have them being adequately operated so that we can maximize our savings in this building for particular because it is the largest consumer of energy for GRF. Right. And finally, I would say that I would seriously suggest to the board that we find some mechanism of starting to be able to produce our own electricity when we have projects which exceed a certain amount of renovation. Like she said about Clubhouse 1, we spent about $4 million renovating it, and we put absolutely nothing into solar PV, which does generate an ROI. So at some point, I'd like to have that conversation with the board about if we're going to spend more than X, then we have to take 10% of X and make sure that we're doing something to start generating some electricity so we start offsetting some of these increases for GRF. Thank you.
Whatever we do, in whatever way, you put down a program, but my thing is that we need to look into doing something to reduce this expense. So however we do it, we have to do it. That's my point. And thank you. Whatever you say is worth it.
Very good. Do we have a member of the audience?
Zakarimi from Third Mutual. On the golf course maintenance or golf course that we subcontracted, what is the saving? It was $82,000 saving altogether for the golf course maintenance when we subcontracted out?
We're still in negotiations with them, to be honest with you. The $82,000 savings is going to be the change from version 2 to version 3. Altogether, the community is going to experience more than that, probably double that. But again, we're still in negotiations with them. All the contract will be brought forth and given to the board here at a later date as soon as contract negotiations are done for ultimate approval.
So at best, this probably translates to about maybe a couple of dollars per man per month. That's what it's going to translate to at best. And then we took all of those people that are on the golf course maintenance and moved them to Third, correct? Because I'm not looking at the member. I have to pay for this one way or the other.
They're going to be transferred to the landscaping services department,
I know
not
that.
Third.
I'm trying to get to,
Okay.
because now we move those people, and then that adds another $1 million or something to the Third for the landscaping, correct?
So just to clarify, again, as Siobhan said, they're going to move over to landscape, not necessarily to Third, and they are going to fill unfilled positions. So it's not going to add any money to your budget.
Yeah.
It's going to fill positions that are unfilled, that are currently outsourced.
We really believe that?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that's true, but I'll look into it and make sure, because we taking money. I mean, we subcontracting something, we're keeping all the employees and we're moving somewhere else. We put for the subcontract, we put for those employees. As a member, we are paying for them, correct?
So the last part of that is we're also subcontracting for grounds maintenance, and we will no longer do that because we will be having those in-house people. So altogether, it's a net wash.
Check the staffing report, Raisa.
What?
Check the staffing report.
The staff doesn't change because the employee costs stay the same. Either you pay it from the GRF side or you pay it from the mutual side. Doesn't matter. Now you have a contract and you have all the staff also available, and you're paying for the staff already when we're doing the golf.
And you're eliminating the supplemental contract that you currently use in Third Mutual and United because you do not have people in those positions, and that's more expensive than in-house staff.
That is the one that I'm going to discuss later with it, because sometimes maybe those subcontractors are going to save us more money, and rather than having, direct employee. But I just want to make sure that we all understand that we are not reducing the staff by subcontracting. We still have the same number of staff. We also have the $1.5 million subcontract.
What we are doing is not hiring more staff.
Yeah.
Correct.
And there's a difference between positions open and actual people in those positions. Landscaped has a lot of positions open that are going to be filled by moving these other people over.
Yes.
Hi, Ellen Leonard. I want to go back to broadband services, the income, non-assessment ad insertions for 2024. We had 925,000 and dropping it down to 680. Were our expectations really high, or how are we doing in 24? We have a 26% variance.
So just to catch everyone up here, Ellen, I believe you are looking at page 6 of 31 on
Yes.
the agenda. And the question is about ad insertion. So again, this number changes between odd and even years due to the political climate. We get a lot more advertising as far as for politics and all the different campaigns and everything that you see on TV. So is your question, how are we doing this year? Currently, we're not where we need to be, but the election hasn't heated quite up yet. So for good or bad, you're going to see a lot more advertising on your TVs, and I guess we can all smile and remember that at least you're getting revenue for it. So we do, that's typically a fourth quarter thing, so that in fourth quarter is when we're going to see the majority of our revenue come in as far as advertising is concerned.
So we'll be seeing pretty much of that 900,000, maybe, for 24.
Robert, do you want to chime in here?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, in addition to the 2024 being an even year, or 2025 being odd, as far as the political advertisements coming in, we're seeing less revenue also as a result of digital and streaming services and that type of thing. But and as Jose mentioned, for the 2024 revenue, we're going to be looking real close to the fourth quarter to see how that does, and we'll know more in a couple months.
I have an advertising question. And at the bottom, it says 484 for 24 and 220,000 for, is that the same thing as ad insertion?
I'm sorry, Alan, I don't know.
Advertising, same page, page 6, under broadband services. We're 55%. It's a big drop. And for 2024, we're going to see 484,000, but 25 we'll see 220. Is that all related to the election as well?
I believe one of these, Jose, is related to Work Center 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I believe that's the, is it the advertising, the 264? Yeah, I believe there's, had to do with a program that was going to be implemented in Work Center 10. And they were anticipating some revenue, but we're also anticipating a position to help generate that revenue. And from what I understand, that program wasn't implemented. So this change right here is just an adjustment on that programming.
Yes. It was a sponsorship. We had anticipated that we were going to get a person that's going to dedicated to looking for sponsorships, and that position ultimately was not filled. So you didn't incur any of the expense associated with that, and unfortunately, we don't have any of the revenue that was associated with that as well.
Thank you. One one other question. Can we go to page 7? And under expenses, employee compensation, missed meals, how does that get from 29,000 in '24 and then 36,899? How does missed meals happen?
So this is going to be a function of taking an average. If you look at the 21, 22, and 23 are all actuals. 24 was just a budget. So it looks like that number was optimistic budgeting in 2024. Realistically, we spend a little bit more time. And this has to do with some of the positions that aren't able to break for a missed meal or for a meal period. So if somebody's involved as far as a security patrol officer and they're in the middle of something, they can't really walk away from it and take their state mandated lunch period. And that's going to be the majority of it, but situations like that do arise where there's some emergent situation where they can't take their meal period, and the state has a formula associated with that.
Thank you, Jose. And on that same page, community events, what, we have 430, we had 627, 432 for '24, and 583, we have a 35% variance there. What's
Sure, and there's an offset to this. This is what happens inside of the clubhouses. All the different events that are associated with the clubhouses, they're associated with revenue as well. Again, if you look at the actuals, you'll see that this area is trending upwards. We're having more clubhouses rented. We're having more stuff at the Performing Arts Center, so we see more revenue and we see more associated expense here.
at the Performing Arts Center, when a club has an event, how soon do you give them the proceeds from the ticket sales of the event?
Allison?
It's processed right after the event, so usually a couple days. If it's on a weekend, it'll be processed on Monday.
I'm told it's 6 weeks.
I mean, sometimes if something falls through the cracks, it may take a little longer, but it is actually processed on our end pretty soon thereafter.
Okay, they can expect that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's move on.
Thanks. All right, so we are now on slide 24. And want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about the surplus or deficit recovery. So this line item here is included in the budget to help us account for any surpluses or deficits that you run throughout the years. I will tell you that in 2024, we had budgeted to have a surplus. So basically what we do is we under-collect, for lack of a better word. We collect less in assessments. That way, that's the way we return the surplus. For 2024 and 2025, for both of those, we anticipate returning $764,000 from the contingency fund into the operating fund, thereby returning some of the surplus. I'll show you in a later slide what that looks like as far as your contingency is concerned. For now, I'm happy to report that the number is going to be kept the same, so there will be no impact to your assessment. Again, if you'll allow me some latitude, I'll cover this more when we talk about the contingency fund. But I want to talk next about reserve funds. This is an area that gets a lot of discussion. As we know, you're asked to fund for any of the next 30 years in expenditures for your capital plan. We do that through reserve funds. The reserve funding gets proceeds from two different ways. One is going to be a per man or per month collection. Historically, it's been $17, and we do anticipate that number stays the same. The second form is going to be through the trust facilities fee fund collection. So this is transfer fee as people buy into your community. Currently set at $7,500. That's where you're going to get the majority of these contributions. But here on the next page, on page 16, you'll see the first iteration of our reserve specialist coming through and letting us know how much we're supposed to have in the kitty, per se. So again, at a charge of $17, we anticipate that you'll have sufficient funds to meet all of your needs over the next 30 years. Again, We're still taking a look at a transfer fee of $7,500. Future years that may change, but we believe that's correct for 2025. $7,500 that you'll collect from each of the different sales therein. Maybe if we see this pictorially on the next page a little bit better. Just so you know, we do conduct 2 reserve studies in GRF, one for facilities and one for equipment. So we've taken these and combined them into one here just to give you the required average percent funding. The percent funding is an item that needs to be disclosed to all your potential homeowners. Currently set at 76%, which is quite high on average, averaging both the equipment and the facilities fund. But I want to take you here to this little chart that's provided by our reserve specialist. Down on the bottom, you see this red, yellow, and green chart. And this is what's used in the industry to let us know what kind of risk we're at for a special assessment. Again, I just told you that combined it's going to be 76, so you're in the low risk for a special assessment. GRF actually has really good funding. I will say that this measurement is used whether we're talking about a 4-unit homeowners association or a 12,000-unit homeowners association like ourselves. So what's going to be important here is for you to understand that we plan on beginning the year in 2025 with about $45 million in reserves, so well above what it is that you spend. Again, based off of everything, we're looking at a percent funding of about 76%, so looking pretty good. On the next page, we show you what their funding plan is. Again, this particular one at the top, you can read it says equipment fund. We also have one for the facilities fund, which is actually funded a little bit better than this. But again, just to give you an idea of what we're looking to spend over the next 30 years and what the assessments are associated with that. Again, looking really good, looking really strong as far as all that is concerned. Happy to take any questions on your reserve study or on your reserves.
And looking at the chart that goes out over the years, it goes from green to yellow to red. What does that mean?
So here, again, this is a summary of it all. So here, let me walk you through this if I may. We're saying that we're anticipating beginning 2025 with $44,650,000. This is saying it's a calculation that's, again, required to be put in. The fully funded balance is how much money they believe we should have in the pot to be able to replace everything at any given time. They're saying we have 76% of that, again, very, very high.
In comparison. On that point, 76%.
Yes.
Does that mean that we have now in the bank enough money to buy everything we need to buy for the next 30 years? So 76% of the amount of money we need to buy everything we need for the next 30 years?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, as I showed you on the little chart, that's really high. You'll see the mutuals will be substantially less, probably right around the 30% range.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to figure out what the number means.
Yes. GRF is doing pretty well when it comes to this.
But just to repeat for everybody's, I don't know if anybody else is confused by this. This does not say we have 76% of the money we need this year. It is 76% of the money that we are going to need for the next 30 years.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And to that end, that second to last column, that reserve expense, we're projecting to spend $15 million this year, meaning in 2025.
All right, thank you. Martin?
I like colored. But why does it look like the end of the world in 30 years? Why does it look like it's going red? Is that if we continue to do what we're doing, we should stay safe, right? Or why is it going red? If you could explain that to me.
Sure. So there's a couple of schools of thought here. Do we plan to have a fully funded balances, and I encourage you to look at that second column here. So for a fully funded balance at the end of 30 years, we'll be having $100 million in the bank, and if we suggested that, then we would get quite a big reaction, I'm sure. It's just a matter of how much is reasonable to have. I would encourage you to have this, in the yellow, if you will. Is there something that we're going to need to do mid-year in about 10 years? Maybe do something a little bit different, maybe change the transfer fee or something like that? Yeah, I believe that there's some space for that, but for the foreseeable future, I think this is a good plan. I don't think...
At 17 and 7,500, if we keep it at that, that's going to take us to the
Yeah, after 30 years.
Steve?
So, to his concern, and this is how we do business, this is how we do budgets, we do it every year, and we've been doing it for decades. One of the interesting things to me is that we're fortunate to have a trust facility fee. When we implemented it, it was legal. The state has now banned new trust facility fees for some period of time. We have the benefit of having this. If you look at that number 25, you see our contributions per man or per month for reserves is about $2.6 million. And our trust facility fee contributions are nearly $6.8 million. So our per man or per month contribution to the reserves is remarkably reduced by us having the trust facility fee. We have in the past gone from one number for the trust facility fee to another number, to another number, to another number, $1,500, $2,500, $4,000, $5,000. We're now at $7,500. One of the things we could do as a board, if we wanted to, is we could develop a policy where we had an incremental increase in that transfer fee amount on an annual basis to help cover the offsets for inflation, which would then change the numbers that you're looking at going forward for the next 30 years. So if you just go on the basis of things go up 3% a year, if we had a 3% increase in the trust facility fee every year, that would be reflected in the numbers that we were presented with every year, and it would prevent us from having to go from $7,500 to $8,500 to $9,500 to $10,000 just based on the whim of the existing board at the time, based on where we are financially. So just a comment from my side. Thank you.
And if I can comment on that, historically, GRF has elected to change the price of the trust facilities fee every 4 years. Not that that's by policy or anything like that, but if you look historically, it has been every 4 years. And when we do take a look at it, we take a look at costs, we take a look at comparables, and those kinds of things, which we're at year 3, so I'm confident that we're going to be taking a look fairly soon.
Do we have a board member online that wishes to speak?
Sue?
Yes, thank you very much. I had kind of the same questions, and perhaps I need a little clarification as well. When Martin, I believe it was Martin, was asking, does that mean if we remain stagnant with the reserve assessments that we would go into the red and starting in 2046? So we would just need to continue adding to that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then the other thing I had a question on is I don't understand the reserve system well, and in multiple settings. And a question I have is that when we say we have enough money for our major projects for the next 30 years. That's fabulous. But are those funds earmarked for special projects, or are they just does money just stay in a big pot and then it pulls over as that amount is needed? I'm not sure how that works.
It's held over in specifically either the equipment fund or the facilities fund, but we don't necessarily have a truck fund or a vehicle fund or anything like that. We just have a facilities fund or equipment fund, and that they're dog-eared specifically for those items.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Reza Karimi, third board member. Just remind you, I'm a board member too. So I have a comment. It's about the reserve. It's very, it's very good to have a good reserve. But while the mutuals are struggling with their reserve, I think GRF need to look at the reserve. That shows that they care more about the clubhouses than about the houses that we live in. We're taking the fees and we're taking $17 per man per month, put in the reserve and build up the reserve for the clubhouses, while the mutuals are struggling to keep the reserve with the, the infrastructure that is being, need a lot of help. We have a lot of issues with the housing while we're building up here. So if the GRF think about the reserve a little bit different and allows that some of the mutuals have a better reserve by increasing their assessment while GRF keep things at the bay, that will help the mutual to build the reserve so they don't have to go to special assessment. There is a danger there, and I think it's very selfish for the GRF not to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm sorry, Reza, but it's very selfish of the mutuals to think that GRF should fund their inadequacies. I know, because I've been on mutual board forever, that bad decisions were made, but it's not up to GRF. Our responsibility is to what we are responsible for. We are doing a good job of making sure that we have the funding for the things that we are responsible for, not the things that the mutuals are responsible for.
That's the basic
you all's.
problem. That's the basic problem, Mr.
That's your
Skillman,
responsibility.
because that's what the division is, this community, and taking the community down if you think that way. We all in it together. We all pay for GRF and we pay for the mutual. Saying that if mutual made a mistake, hell with them. Your house goes, into the bad shape, but I'm going to have a nice clubhouses. Please don't say that. That's not nice.
No.
Steve?
Just to be perfectly clear, the Golden Rain Foundation is a trust which oversees the assets for the owners, who are the mutuals. So if we do not keep our reserves and we do not maintain the property, we are being negligent in our responsibility to the mutuals, who are the true owners of all these facilities. So let's not confuse what the reality of the situation here. We have that responsibility as trustees.
Well, I would also like to add that the clubhouses are not the only thing that we take care of.
Not at all.
And so that it's an incorrect assumption that we've got sidewalks, we've got highway, we've got the streets, we've got a lot of things that we're maintaining. Yes, sir.
The GRF have the opportunity to get the fees while the mutuals don't have those opportunities. I don't know why any of those fees cannot go to the mutuals for their incoming. The GRF is the organization that have the opportunity to make more money, and the mutual don't. The mutual, everything comes from the members, but GRF is different. So have that in mind. Just saying that we're going to collect money to take care of, clubhouses or whatever we're taking care of, while the mutuals are struggling, that's not right.
If I understand your basic point correctly, is that you're of the view that we all should take a holistic view to what we're doing and not, isolate them. And I share that concern. I mean, I think that we do need to take a holistic view. That does not mean that we should not be responsible for our reserves. And there's a happy medium there somewhere, and I understand your point. Is anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Reza, I appreciate your comments. Thank you. On the combination of equipment and facilities fund on 26, what exactly is equipment? Because Jose, you made the comment vehicles are not part of it.
Vehicles are part of it, but my
okay.
point behind that is that we don't have anything dog-eared for a tractor or a bus or anything like that. It's all one big pot. That's called equipment fund.
Okay, it's a guess. Is it a guess like every year? Is it a guess about how much money will be in the equipment fund in 30 years? Is that what it is, or?
We go over year by year. We have a capital plan that tells you specifically what we're planning for each and every year.
Okay, and the facilities are the clubhouses?
Facilities or anything that's attached to a building or that's going to stay permanently, yes.
And the clubhouses, right,
Yes.
everything. Okay, thank you.
But GRF is also responsible for services.
All right, let's move on.
On slide 32 here, we'll talk about the contingency fund, and as you can see here, we had no contribution in 2024, and we still continue to recommend no contribution in 2025. Let me tell you a little bit about why. First, a little bit of history here. These have been the historical balances in your contingency fund, and unlike reserves, contingencies it's a savings account. It's not anything that you're required to have by statute, but it's obviously nice to have. So you can see there in 2018, you had about $420,000, 19, 500, 2020 about $1 million. You see a big jump from 2020 to 2021, and that would be because in 2020 we had COVID, obviously, and we had a huge operating surplus. So we took that operating surplus in 2021 and we put it into contingency fund. Actually, in 2021 we also had a surplus, and you can see what that did to your balances there. So that's how those balances started popping upwards. So the question is, what do we do with the balances? So what we have here on the next couple pages is a little bit of a projected cash flow. I want to show you where we are and where we're going, what the plan is. So as of June, this fund had almost $4 million, $3,948,000. And again, there is no planned contributions to this fund, so you see that you see the zero there. This fund is making about $100,000 a year, or for the second half of the year, about $52,000 is what we anticipate. We also recently approved funding an operating deficit of $1.1 million. So even with taking that amount out, this fund is also, it's a contingency fund, an emergency fund, if you will. So on average, you spend about $36,000. Historically, we've used it for legal fees. We used it during COVID for a vaccine program. We've used it for termite fumigation. We used it for a couple of different items, but typically nothing too big. I don't know what that would be used for, but on average about $36,000. We wanted to pop that in there. So we project ending this year with $2,863,000. So for 2025, again, we anticipate interest income of about $50,000. We anticipate the $5 that I talked earlier about that we were going to be returning as operating surplus. We anticipate taking that out for $764,000. And we do anticipate, we spend about $100,000 a year. 105,000 is what we put in here. So we anticipate, with everything being equal, ending this fund at about $2 million. And again, as you were looking back historically, your funds had been anywhere from $500,000 to recently about $4 million, but realistically, you're only using about $100,000 per year directly out of the fund. So we thought that $2 million is an appropriate amount to continue to keep in there. So that is why our recommendation is that your contribution remain at zero, because you don't have to have it, if you will. Yeah, that's also why our contribution to our operating surplus is at $5 per man or per month, because that gets this number right around to the $2 million mark is what we're expecting. So again, that wraps up the presentation itself. I'm happy to take any questions on the contingency funds before I move forward.
Martin?
What was the upcoming 764 OPR transfer? What was that going to be for?
That's that number that you see on your screen right now, the surplus deficit recovery, the $5 that we under-collect, for lack of a better word. We purposely run a deficit in the current year to the tune of $5 per man or per month. That's our way of returning prior year surplus to you. And that's to be consistent with what was done for 24, so you'll see no change in your business plan.
Oh, yeah, come to 764. Okay.
764,000, yes. So again, so this is, in summary here, we talked about each of these items individually. You saw that we're projecting more revenue as well as more expense. We didn't have any changes in surplus deficit. We don't recommend any changes to reserves or contingencies for a grand total of $9.97 per man or per month. I see you again. Let me just make one more point on the next slide before we get to that question. And again, I know we've talked a lot in detail, but I want to end it where we started, and reminding you that out of all these items that we talked about today, 84% of your total increases are explained, again, by utilities, by insurance, by workers' comp, and even that outsourced lifeguard. Those are going to be the major changes for GRF. At the end of the day, if I had to sum it up, that's what I would put it in at. But again, happy to take any questions here before we jump into capital.
Gan, go.
Gan?
Do I have the? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, go back to that GRF business plan, slide number 10.
36.
I was wondering, this is the bottom line, and how much we can change so that the increase will be somewhat palatable. Looking at the numbers and your presentations, I was thinking the opportunities that we have and whether you can make it this way. Looking at the final numbers, can we go to non-assessment revenue, last column assessment, instead of 4.08, make it a 5? And regarding total expenses, instead of 14.05, can we make it 10 and go backwards and see where we can and how that affects our our forecast business plan? Is it doable, or can you try that so that I can see a more palatable amount of increase, about 4 or 5 instead of 9.97? That's my question. Thank you.
So I think that's something that we would all like, of course. This is something, obviously, we've been looking at each and every one of these numbers. To get those amounts, just to give you an idea, would require an additional revenue of $140,000. I think that we're being optimistic in some areas as it is. I think we're doing what we can to get the revenue in there. As far as tightening our belts, again, we've been taking a look at these version after version coming down and figuring out where we can. But I think that's without cutting any service. The answer is yes, we can do anything, but it would affect service. Without cutting any service, this is where we're at.
Well, regarding revenue, you have $2 million plus. As a reserve fund, we can take 125 or 130 that you are talking about. That is a small takeaway from that reserve fund. And reserve fund is for this kind of situation, I guess, to take care of eventualities. And total expenses, it is so complicated and so elaborate. I don't know where to go. but definitely increasing the efficiency, decreasing number of people, and or both, and decreasing the waste. I have gone to garden villa. I live in a garden villa, and there are 55 or something like that, 50 or 55 of them. Lights are on every day during daytime. So I think we should do. I have raised this question before, and I'm raising it today. I saw a tremendous amount of money allocated to the electricity, and that will go back some. And I don't know what other items to go for, but I believe you people are very innovative and working hard on reducing the cost, PMPM. I would like to see that if things have gone up. I am sure that inflation has been there, and particularly our insurance cost has gone up. But I would like to see somewhere around 4-5%, $5 to increase rather than $10 at a time. And that's my comment. And I think you can try in your next version if you have another version to go for. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I think that all we can ask is that for these folks to sharpen their pencils and see how much blood we can squeeze out of this turnip. But the numbers that you're talking about may require the reduction of services in a significant way. But if, you know, that's a question for the board to answer.
Correct.
Right. Can we take about, I'm the chair, I can do it. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Sure.
At what? 11 something or other? 10-minute break? Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we split the difference and say we're going to take an 8-minute break and we'll come back at 11:20.
Thank you.
Before you break, could I ask a question?
I can unhit my gavel. Yes.
Okay, just very quickly because it pertains to this section. It's an oldie and a baddie or a goodie, depending on how you look at it. And this it goes into the reserves and the investments. And so there is an old allegation that continues to linger. We've heard that GRF lost more money by not changing quickly to buying treasury funds. Are these comments true?
No,
Or
it's not true. Well, it's not true. You'll have to get Steve here to get into the details on that, but no, it is not true.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, thank you. All right, returning at 11:20.
plan that we've been talking about for a couple of months now. There really haven't been too many changes to it. Just to remind everyone, for the 2025 portion of the capital plan, we do plan on spending $3,262,000 out of equipment, $3,900,000 out of facilities, for a total of $7.1 million. Today, I just have slides for the changes from the last version, and there really aren't many changes. If we can see slide 38 here. So just to remind everyone, these are going to be the changes that occurred from the last time we met and talked about capital, and that's going to be 2 additions and 1 reduction. The 2 additions for both the asphalt and the parkway concrete, this has to do with updated pricing. I know that the board just recently reviewed the contract for these vendors on July 8th, and all the reasons of why the pricing changed on those was talked about at that point. But just to let you know, that asphalt paving and seal coat program for version 3 is going to increase $263,000, or at least the proposal is to increase $263,000 for a grand total of $1.1 million. And for parkway concrete and repairs, that's going to increase by $102,000 for a grand total of $302,000 for asphalt, parkway, and concrete due to recent contract updates and negotiations. Also happy to report that the Clubhouse 1 billiards lights is going to be removed from the project, and that's on account that they've already been installed. So and they've got installed as part of the Clubhouse 1 refresh, so the lights are up and running, so we won't need to add them in 2025 anymore. So
We spent it this year, so we don't have to spend it in 2025.
Correct.
All right, cool.
So that's going to be really all I had to say about capital, unless you guys want to take a look at it. Any of the other plans, they do appear on your agenda, all 50 or so items across agenda item number 7, page 25 and 26. But there's not really anything more to add, unless there's any questions
Martin
on
has
it.
a question.
I have a question. If we look at going to a different type of broadband system, why buy more set-top boxes? I say, let's just start making the jump. I don't foresee us using them.
Good. Robert can correct me as I'm wrong, but this is your plug into the wall, essentially. This is the way you're going to be able to gain the programming. So due to age and use, there is a failure rate on them, so it is our responsibility to make sure that everyone is still connected. As a reminder, you do collect fees for having these on, so I know that the amounts have been reduced just to make sure that we only have just enough
How
inventory.
many boxes does 125,000 represent?
About $400 each, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly on that, Martin, but just a reminder to the board that the contract with West Coast Internet goes through 2026. So the budget we're discussing is 2025. We got to get to that finish line as far as supplies and so forth, and that's why we continue to budget for them.
Well, I do know that like we're making some tough decisions in the operating budget about like some of these programming contract renewals that you're looking at hard at like starting to filter down some of the less popular ones than that. And so I know that we're looking at a trend, and I'm just wondering if equipment-wise we could be looking at that same trend. That's all. Thank you.
If I may ask, I mean, this is an anticipated need, right? I mean,
Correct.
that you think that you're going to need these in 2025. So that requires however many set boxes this is to break or to have new people come in and want them. So that I'm presuming you're not going to buy, 100 or more set-top boxes absent demand.
Correct. Yeah, we look at our inventory, we look at the failure rate, and what we need, we'll buy, and what we don't need, we'll hold back.
Why is he in?
Anybody have any? Yes, Egon?
Yeah, so this goes back to another time, but the set-top box rentals are $1.9 million a year, if my memory is correct. why are we getting 125,000? Are we using that 1.9 million to buy boxes and you need more boxes? Why is the general population supplementing the set-top boxes for only the people that rent set-top boxes, who are already paying 3 times what the replacement cost could possibly be? I don't understand why there's a request for more money.
I think, Egon, if I may, you're saying that it's $1.9 million in revenue for use of set-top boxes, which greatly exceeds the value of the set-top boxes, right?
The replacement need.
The replacement need. So that excess, to the extent it's excess funds, it goes into our general fund. And, right?
Yes.
Am I tracking correct here? So that nobody is underwriting the set-top boxes except for the set-top box users. I think. Even if we buy, what is this? I can't add. $300,000 worth of set-top boxes. Steve?
So, correct me if I'm mistaken, but residents cannot buy the boxes. We have to buy the boxes and lease them to the residents. Is that correct? Right.
Yes.
So this is basically capital equipment so that the residents can have access to the digital channels with the use of the set-top boxes. Set-top boxes are not mandatory. You can plug in a digital television directly into the wall, like I do in the towers. I do not have a set-top box. So it's an elective expense, and we can't buy them. We can't say, well, I'm a resident, I'll buy a box for $400, and it'll last me for 4 years, and I'll buy another one. Such as with West Coast Internet, with a modem. You need a modem to have internet. You can have West Coast sell you one, or you can go buy your own at Best Buy, and they can commission it. So I just want to be clear in my mind that these set-top boxes are something we cannot own as individuals.
That's correct.
That GRF must buy, and so we get lease fees back from them. And I know for a fact that these things wear out because they have disk drives in them that record programming, and like all computers, disk drives fail, and then they need to be either repaired or replaced. And I imagine we don't repair set-top boxes, we just rotate them out.
Correct, unless I imagine if it was a very simple repair, but
Right.
you're right. If the box failed, we replace it with the new one.
Right.
And the set-top boxes, they're required for a paid program.
Right, paid programming as well as to some of the other channels. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that portion of what these devices are, how they're acquired, how we pay for them and leased. And we do have failures. I mean, if you have 12,000 set-top boxes and you have a 3% failure, I mean, do the math. You're going to have to replace 360, 400 of them a year, and they cost money. Thank you.
Martin?
Yeah, the number of set-top boxes that we have in service right now, they're dwindling. People are moving to streaming now. It's going down. Why buy boxes one year that you know are going to be going out of service the following year? Don't invest into equipment that you're going to be removing the following year.
They're only going to invest in the equipment that they need to replace for those people who have boxes that fail and want to continue to have a box.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So
Doesn't address it.
we will have just-in-time inventory.
You got it?
Well, it still leaves me at the same question. Why are we supplementing the set-top boxes when they generate so much money? Last week we were here, and there was a big to-do about the golf. Who pays for golf? Well, golf has a shortfall, so everybody was talking about how much we should pay, and that's yet been undecided, but at least it was discussed. There is no shortfall. If set-top boxes were a golf game or some game somewhere, it would be making a 800% profit. So why are we sticking capital into a business that is so profitable? I mean,
You're thinking about it as a net, and it's gross, right? We have to have boxes, and they have to be paid for, so that's why we pay for them.
then why
They're-
not pay for them out of the rental?
What makes you think we're not?
Because you're asking for extra money.
Well,
We pay for it out
we're
of capital.
saying that we have to spend this amount of money. I don't think your assumption is correct, because money being fungible, which means it's interchangeable. If we are making more money than it costs for the set-top boxes, and that's a plus into our balance sheet. And if we have to buy a set-top box, it's a minus. And the minuses for acquisition do not exceed the pluses for rental. Is
So
what I'm saying.
there should be no need to have any additional costs come in.
It's
You're
not
not
a-
doing this, you're not doing this for any other activities. I'm saying that we have an activity here that generates a tremendous profit, and then you're coming on top of that profit, which you're distributing to other places, which may not be legal, and you're saying, give me an extra 125,000 because
Not
I
an
want
extra.
to buy boxes.
All right.
It's not an extra, it's accounting.
It's not profit. It's 1.9 million you're creating, but you're paying out $5 million in cable programming. So you're far from profitable.
The cable programming is paid for differently.
Oh,
It's all
It's the
related.
usage
All right,
of
we're
those
just-
boxes.
I mean, EGOT has expressed a concern that we're not allocating the excess funds that we achieve from rental to set-top boxes. And all we can do is ask staff to determine whether or not that's accurate.
Okay.
So,
And I just want to clarify that all expenses, we're not asking for additional funding for the set-top boxes. It's just the funding for set-top boxes. We have to account for revenues on one side and expenditures on the other. And just like Martin was talking about, this is all in conjunction with programming fees. It's really a package deal. No one has a set-top box just to have a set-top box. It's for the whole service of getting programming, and that's why we net those two against each other.
all right. Anyone else?
Kathy Bravata. If my memory serves me, several months ago when we were discussing this particular topic, we were told that just on the rental of these boxes that we make 1.3 million of just renting the boxes. And so I guess at that time there was also a question asked, well, can't we take 125,000 out of that specific amount that was strictly income from those set-top boxes? That's my question.
Right, and accounting makes us account for them separately. We have to call out revenues, and expenditures, and not a net.
No, I know, but when we had this same conversation a couple months ago, and I can't remember at which meeting, the monies that were received from the rental of those boxes was strictly for those boxes. And it had nothing to do with any other part of the fees associated with renting or streaming or using the boxes, the recorders or whatnot. So I'm just a little confused where what Egon said as far as 125,000, why that could not be taken from that 1.3 million.
Right.
And that's just...
Let me sort of say it this way. If you bring me right now $50, put it right here, and I give you $25, how much money are you up or down?
25.
Right, 25. That's what we're doing with these boxes.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, I know,
unless
I rent
unless
three
I
of
don't
them.
understand what they're doing. I
Yeah,
mean,
so.
that's what they're doing.
Okay, all right. Okay.
No, I mean, ask your question.
No, I just don't see what the problem would be to eliminate that particular line item and simply purchase the 125,000 out of that income. I know the additional income that is made goes elsewhere, but
Actually, it goes into the general fund. We have a bank account.
Right.
So that we cannot purchase $125,000 worth of anything and not have it appear on these balance sheets.
Then maybe we should consider allowing us owners to purchase our own boxes.
I don't know that you're prohibited from doing that, but
Yeah.
what do I know?
So, of course, I know we would lose money, the GRF would lose money if we bought our own boxes like we do with West Coast Internet. But I only have to replace that box once every 5 or 6 years, so.
Right.
I know I spend a lot of money every year renting the 3 boxes that I do, Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And
Just want to say, all set-top boxes will be sunsetted in 2 years.
I'm sorry, what?
All set-top boxes will be sunsetted in 2 years.
And that means?
That means they'll be out of service.
So I'm going to have to figure out another way to record shows.
Well, yes.
Well, I mean, Martin, you said that
That's
with
another-
a degree of certainty that is not warranted.
That's another plan.
The board is, through your committee,
Considering.
Right. There'll be a change
transitioning to a
in
streaming
streaming
format over cable TV format.
More money to other areas in order to see some of the stuff that I do.
It remains to
Yeah.
be seen how that all plays out.
Stay tuned. We're looking good.
All right. Anything else?
I have nothing else here to share.
Are we at the end of the agenda?
Yes.
Yay. Does anybody have anything further? See what I'm supposed to do? Okay.
About the clubhouses?
What about them?
Well, like Kush said, could one of the clubhouses, we add solar panels to one of them?
I'm not entirely sure that this is the meeting in which to raise that, but we certainly could.
This is the capital.
Well, this is, well, you make a good point. I don't know. I mean, it just seems that the decision to add, Steve, go. I'll make a further.
So, again, this is a board-level decision about what we want to do going forward. We know what we haven't done in the past as GRF. We know what the mutuals have done in the past to be able to provide generating their own electricity. They made investments in those solar arrays to reduce their electricity costs. I cannot imagine, and I would not ask staff under any circumstances, to go back in time and show how much money the Third and United are now saving today as opposed to what they were saving when they first put the solar in, based on the fact that the costs for electricity have gone basically from about 17.5 cents, is my recollection from years ago, now into the 30-cent category. The return on investment on those solar systems has now doubled for those mutuals. We have the capability as a board, as GRF, to sit down and talk about this and decide what we want to do. It will require expenditures of funds which we do not have planned in the capital plan. So we would have to look at that, come up with some kind of budget, put it over a several-year plan because we have so many buildings, and probably stage it from one building to another building to another building over a period of time, and make that investment for whatever amount of money that was per year, $300,000, $500,000, $1 million, whatever it is. But we spend a heck of a lot of money in electricity, and it's not going to go down, and we do have the advantage to be able to do something about it. I am certainly a proponent of it. I know many of you here who know me know my experience in this and what we've been able to do in the past. And it's really my hope now, being a director on GRF, that I can assist in moving this forward.
Thank you. We can put it on a future agenda and look at it. Yes, ma'am.
I agree with Steve. This is not the place to make that decision, but it will have to go to a new, probably the renewal of the Energy Committee to investigate it, and it's very appropriate. But today, here, is not where we can make that decision. That's all.
Donna?
Yes, just one thing we have to keep in mind, and I'm a great proponent of things like solar energy, et cetera, but there have been, my understanding, both on the commercial side, which it might be where we would be considered as opposed to the residential side, some major changes in the payback since the time that those other panels were put in, so that it would be a much longer payback period. And so the question is, this is not the place to do it because we do have to find out what that period would be. And we have to find out whether or not there are anticipated changes that in the next year or two might benefit us greater by waiting. So yes, it's a discussion for a different place. And there are other factors. And I know there has been a change in the payback that we have to be aware of. So thank you. But it was great. Thank you very much for a wonderful meeting.
Kush?
I agree to all these different thoughts, but if we spend all our time talking about it, our action will come a long time later. So maybe we should short circuit that and make quick decisions, because every year we spend talking, we are still paying money to the companies that we get services from.
All right. Anyone else?
I just wanted to make a comment that staff has committed to continue to look and see what's going on or what recommendations they have for capital. I know that towards the end of the year, we're going to already start talking about 2026, because ultimately, when we get to a meeting like this, we want to not just pull a number out of thin air, but we want to show you some kind of plan, some kind of recommendation, some kind of estimate as far as what the cost would be, as well as any payback periods or anything like that. So that is something that's going to be beginning even for 2026 by the end of the year.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you to staff, thank you to the board members, thank you to the members of the public that are here. Hearing nothing further, this meeting is adjourned at 11:45.